Ever had a dream, if you've ever had a goal and a desire to be somewhere, to do something, to create a business, but you didn't know how to do it, you're going to love today's episode. I am so honored to be able to speak with Vanessa Zamy, who had no experience in business. She was working in corporate, but she wanted to start her own business. She had read a book, the book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and she decided that's what she needed to do. She was tired of being in corporate, but she had no experience. She had no family members who had a business. And today we talk with her about what she did to get started.
You're listening to Espresso Jams, short, concentrated, delicious conversations about business, technology, and entrepreneurship. If you're just starting out on your business adventure or you're a seasoned business professional, I'm sure you'll find value in these short conversations. Espresso Jams is brought to you by Apexible, providing the tools, insights, and transformative structures to help you reach your business summit. I'm your host, Joe Matz. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am so happy and so honored to have Vanessa Zamy with us today. She is known as the Business Defibrillator. She's a keynote speaker, best-selling author, professor, and global business consultant, helping business owners revive, grow, and scale their business without burnout, sleep deprivation, or mediation. Welcome to the show, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Happy to be here.
It is great to have you here. I'm so excited about this conversation and the value for our listeners.
Yeah, I'm excited to share. Yeah, feel free to ask away. I'm an open book.
Well, here's the first question. Where do you hail from today?
I am in Massachusetts at the moment, in a town that's south of Boston.
Yeah, south of Boston, but not as far south as New York City.
Exactly. Somewhere in the middle.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So before we get into the meat of the conversation, Vanessa, you have done so much. And you look young. You must have started when you were a baby. Tell me, what brought you to this point? How did you become a business defibrillator?
Yes, well, my corporate career was actually in strategy consulting. So I was essentially helping big companies make their millions and billions, Fortune 500 companies in the US specifically, and as different industries, including like med tech, nuclear manufacturing, consumer packaged goods, a financial services company, and then the last stint was at a retail apparel company. And working with different cross-functional teams and dealing with corporate politics, the corporate politics that exists in the office. And so that was my corporate career. And I fell into strategy consulting because it really spoke to my zone of genius, which is in problem solving. And so I've always been that friend, maybe some other listeners listening, that friend who is that person who people come to have their problem solved, or they know the person's going to come to with a solution. And so that's me. So a problem solver. And so using that skill to help companies was what I was doing in my corporate life and career. Before that, I had done some work in nonprofit and health and arts. But ultimately, from my career in corporate America, I then read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and by Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know if you've read that book, Joe. Yes. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad, yeah, but that was a book that was pretty much the inspiration for enter into entrepreneurship, because it really taught me and showed me how accessible entrepreneurship truly was and truly is. And that, America runs on business pretty much. So that was my introduction to that sort of world. And it wasn't until a couple of months later when I had to transfer my actual company, Your Vision's Catalyst.
You had to do what?
A trance. I woke up in this trance-like state. So I was living in Oakland at the time, Oakland, California, at the time that I started my business. And
sorry about that.
It was a Sunday morning. And I remember I woke up on a Sunday morning, I grabbed my laptop, I was just typing away. It was just wake up laptop, type. And then I remember I looked up from my laptop about 3 hours later. I looked up, I looked around, and then I looked back at my laptop and I literally saw that I had created a business plan for my company, Your Vision's Catalyst, which is the consulting company through which I don't consult big companies, I consult micro businesses and entrepreneurs on how to grow their purpose-driven business without burnout, sleep deprivation, or overwhelm.
So let's talk about those 3 hours. So obviously, this must have been gelling inside of you since reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It must have been gelling inside a little bit, and then you just let it all out. Does that sound right?
No. So honestly, so what happened was,
Excuse me.
all right. So I read the book. So I was reading the book while I was commuting to from work. And so I would commute on like the public, was like this train that people would use to commute. And in the city life, in the city, via the life of trade. And so I was commuting on the train, so it gave me time to like read the book. And so I read the book, took notes, etc. And then I said, okay, so I want to go to entrepreneurship. Oh, also, if you read that book, you know, he talks a lot about real estate investing, right? So that was also another thing that I was introduced to. I was like, oh my God, regular people own laundromats? So that was my introduction to that world as well too. And so I was like, okay, real estate investing. I remember I looked online, I Googled like, okay, real estate investing, let's look up like workshops and stuff that was happening in my area. There was one that was coming up in like 4 months or so. So I signed up for that one. I said, okay, that's real estate investing. And I had some other goals I wanted to finish before I even, started on that path. So I said, okay, priorities, we're gonna do that. Then we're gonna do, this real estate investing. So originally I was just gonna go forth with real estate investing, but that was the thing. And then it literally was until a couple months later, I was like, oh, I guess literally was just like, here's a business, Vanessa. And I said, okay, whoever gave me that business, sure. So that was what happened. So I literally just woke up. It was just, words just came out, things would happen. I mean, less than a month later, after I typed that whole thing up, the business was registered, had the logo, had the website, all the things. That was the start of me starting my business on the side of my corporate job.
Okay, so you started part-time while you were working at your corporate job. And how did that go in the beginning?
So in the beginning, it was maybe I'm not sure if this is going to be, may or may not be relevant, but ultimately part of I know a lot of people, sometimes they've read the book, right? But it doesn't really quite hit them, right? The lessons, because they're not ready for it, right? And that happens in any areas of life. You might meet someone, but you're not ready for them. You might read something, you might listen to something, but you're not ready for it, right? And so at the time that I had read that book, I had gone through various different experiences in corporate America. And I was just at the point where I was just like, okay, so I know nonprofit's not the route for me. Well, at least it's very inefficient. And it seems to me corporate politics may not be the route, but I'm not quite sure what else you want from me, universe. Like, it doesn't seem like anything else. And so then I remember a VP at the company recommended I read that book. I read that book, and I didn't actually say those words to him, but we had the same background of being from humble beginnings and, making it through the journey that we made it through in corporate America. And so that was a book that inspired him. So he shared that book onto me as well. And so when I read that book, I was already at a space where I was like looking for something different. I was already sort of I was like, I don't know what else, but I mean, I've done this other corporate stuff. And so when looking through and reading through what's he call that thing? But the 4 quadrants that Robert showcases in his book was like, oh, there are people who do the E and the B and the S and the I, the business owner, the investor, the self-employed, the employee. And so when looking at that quadrant, I was like, oh, okay, I need to be in the B and the I. And then it was like, okay, cool. That's about that, right? And then the last chapter of the book talks about real estate investing. It's like, okay, well, I guess that's the path? ? So that was sort of that process, right? So I was already in the process of knowing or thinking, though not knowing, but thinking that the corporate sort of space wasn't going to be my end state, right? Even though I had this goal of I'm going to be CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and that's my goal, and that's just gonna happen. And at some point, pretty much, sometimes you have a plan, and sometimes plans change. And so I got this new information, and I reassessed the plan and the vision. But ultimately, the beginning journey of starting a business, a day job, it was from the time perspective. It was like time management, productivity perspective of it was actually very simple for me because I had been always in life. I've always been doing many stuff at the same time. That's just what I do. And I think you mentioned it earlier where you were like, seems like you've done a lot. It's like, yeah, because I do a bunch of stuff at the same time. But I do them effectively and efficiently. That's why people give me lots of recommendations on LinkedIn. And they love it so much. So with that being said, the process of starting the business from the process of like the time management and productivity perspective, that was the easy part. The hard part was the whole like knowledge. It was like, because I didn't have like my family I didn't have family of business owners. No, my mother and my aunts were nurses. So I was just kind of like, okay, I want to do a business. All right, Google, like google.com. How does one start a business? And so that's what happened there. So that was the journey of that. And also because at the time I was in California, tech company, technology, right? And my business here in Cali was a consulting company. So it's not a technology company, right? So that was a whole other thing where I was like, okay, well, all right. I guess we got to Google like how to start just a business in general. And so that was that whole process there. So I relied on Google. Google was a great source to help me fill in some knowledge. And then, once I hopped on Google with and really I found SBA.gov was the first resource because it's the Small Business Administration within the United States is one of the many tools and resources where they have like a hub of just different online stuff, like a checklist. It was like, okay, here are the processes of starting a business. Register, get a website, get this number.
Right. The SBA is a great resource, and on their website they have a lot of little trainings. They're like mini trainings, but they're very specific on certain topics. That's great. Yeah. So you really started at the beginning because you didn't have family to lean on for knowledge at that time.
No, did not.
Wow. And so you settled on being a coach as opposed to the real estate business.
I actually ended up doing both of them in tandem.
Okay. Okay.
Following a theme here. But so ultimately, because I still had at the time that I woke up in that trance with my actual consulting company, the real estate investing workshop, I had still signed up for that. So that was still, but that hadn't happened yet, but it was going to happen. And like, I think it ended up being like the month after I woke up in that trance was when the real estate investing workshop was actually set to happen. And so this was, I still like kept both of them, so to speak, both of those things in play, if that makes sense. And I'm also doing the day job too. And for the real estate investing, so I went to that workshop at the time. By the time I get to that workshop, I've already had my business. Like now it's officially registered. Now it's all the stuff. Now I have to get clients, right? And so that was where the consulting company was at the time. And then the real estate investing workshop was, okay, I read a book, this workshop, let's learn. So I then decided, so I did both of them at the same time. I also still had my day job. And one of the main things that was also really critical for me, because someone's probably asking, how did you find the time then, Vanessa? And one of the things that was critical for me was that for me, it was, I remember even before I even read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but it was before I started my business, it was while I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and learning about the quadrants and learning about where I actually belonged in life and space and time. And I remember saying to myself, okay, I could continue getting in before the boss, staying after the boss, and continue to not be appreciated and undervalued. I could continue that. Or I could come in when I'm supposed to come in and then leave 4:30 p.m. shuttle like everyone else. And so that's what I decided. So every day, 4:30 p.m., I hopped on the shuttle, the 4:30 p.m. shuttle. Not a minute later, because it was all on time. 4:30 p.m. shuttle, left my laptop at work and went home. And so that was one of the first things that even before I started my business, it was sort of my way of giving myself space and time and not sort of feeling like I was giving energy to something that just wasn't even appreciating me. And that was like that first step there. So, and that pattern, that habit that I formed, it ended up helping me and getting more of that time and energy when eventually I then had these two things in play that I wanted to do. And so I ended up taking, and throughout the next couple of months, what ended up happening was I would take PTO, so vacation days, and I would go to different conferences and network with people around California, different events. I went to conferences in other states as well too, just meeting people in the real estate investing space, and also like business conferences, meeting other business owners as well too, and potential people for me to help as well. And so that's pretty much what the first year looked like.
So I think that was a very courageous step to go into work on time when you used to go in early and leave at a set time at 4:30. Was that I've got two questions there, because it was very courageous. Did you feel like you were stepping out of your comfort zone, and was there a little fear about what the reaction might be from your boss?
Well, absolutely, yes. It was definitely like stepping out of the comfort zone, because also I'd always been, I had always been sort of taught, quote unquote, or when I entered the career space, it was always like, oh, you gotta, give twice as much, and work twice as hard, stay after the boss, and all that sort of jazz. And so definitely was like a different mentality and a different approach to working. That it was one of those things where, especially as a ambitious, high achieving person, if you could already tell, it was very much like like part of me felt like if I left at 4:30, I wasn't working as hard. Even though if you look at hours, like if you look at, or at least I thought that the perception would be I was working as hard, even though if you look at the amount of hours, like there were people who came into work after I did and still left at 4:30. Like, right? And so it was like,
And what happened at work? I mean, did you get any bad looks? Did you feel any bad vibes from anybody when you started doing this? Were you less appreciated?
Here's the thing. I couldn't have been less appreciated than I already was, John. like that's the point that I had reached, where it was just like, I can't be any less appreciated. So right now, so it became one of those things where at the end of the day, when I decided to do it, it was much like at this point, what else? I can't already be less appreciated than I already felt like I was, at least by my direct boss, right? There are other people in the company who loved me, but my direct boss, who ultimately, based on how the hierarchical structure and the review process and all that stuff, he just wasn't really a leader of people and like helping to move them up. So I still was owning my own career either way and having to sort of inform the narrative that was happening around me. And so, yes, were there people who probably, she used to stay in later and now she's leaving at 4:30. She must not be as interested anymore. Like people probably saying that, absolutely. But yet, so once I started doing that pattern, it was 2 months later, I then actually started the business. A month after that, then actually did the real estate investing. And then it was 4 months after that, I was actually promoted at my company and job. And I ended up getting a 14% salary increase. And then then also that year, people didn't really get bonuses or awards, because usually the company gave bonuses every year, but that year they ended up not giving like bonuses to everyone. They did like a special award thing. I got one of the awards. And so the fact of the matter is that I was still delivering work, being efficient and effective, just because I was just great at what I did. Like I was just great at strategy. So it could take one person takes 8 hours to do it. It took me like 4 or 5 hours because I was just that awesome at doing it. And so it was one of those things where, yes, I left earlier, but my work was still impeccable.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, wow, it's like a whirlwind. I'm almost tired listening to you with all that activity going on. What are you doing now?
What am I doing now? So Your Business Catalyst is literally the same business I started a couple of years ago. Our mission specifically is to equip and empower ambitious entrepreneurs and micro business owners to keep moving forward on their vision. So when that fateful day comes, they can say they live their life without any shoulda, coulda, or woulda. And that was actually the mission that I came up with the business about 3 months after we even started. And the mission still to this day. I've switched out the word startup, entrepreneurs, as well as, that whole audience thing is a whole other conversation. But essentially helping consult businesses on how to revive their business, grow their business, and scale their business without the burnout, without the overwhelm, and without the exhaustion, sleep deprivation. And so that is what we continue to do. And my focus has been on one-on-one strategy consulting. And the reason why I do that is because throughout my journey, so, I went through the whole, I'm Googling stuff. Then I was like, all right, let me watch some videos. Then I was like, okay, who is actual expert? Like, let me connect with some, let me get some coaches or some mentors, And I call myself a consultant, a coach. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But ultimately, starting with my journey of learning and processing, right? So then I decided to, let me invest in some business growth programs as well too, right? Because I'm looking to grow my business as well too. And so it's something that for people who are going from corporate to actual entrepreneurship, the first thing you learn is that it's a whole different world, right?
Yeah,
So you may
right.
have been able to, help big companies make their millions and billions, but it's a little bit different when you're doing your own business. Like it's just a whole nother world, a whole nother set of rules. It's just a whole nother world. And so I then decided, okay, let me learn more of the rules of this world, this entrepreneurship world, this marathon. And so then I invested in these different coaches and programs. And that was a journey I went through. But it was one of those things where they're programs, but I would say in summary is that they're not programs that I would recommend to others. And pretty much what happened was that there were a lot of great salespeople, and they were really great at understanding my pain points and the vision that I had and messaging that to me. And the thing is that, I would go through the programs, and it was not only just me, but it was also other people like who would join in around the same time that I joined into these programs that also felt like they were bamboozled, so to speak. Now, with that being said, in the fairness of the programs, for some reason, every program I went into, it was always with someone who was in a point of transition. Like either they were like a 7-figure business going to 8, so they were going through a whole sort of new level of systems and processes. And so because of that, they were kind of in this chaos state. They were still taking on new people. And so then it was kind of like this whole thing. And it literally happened with 2 programs. Then another one, I decided to, I took like a one-on-one with someone who had had some great success, with her, prior program. When I reflect on it, she was also going through a change. And I was essentially like a guinea pig experiment for this sort of new level that she was going to or trying to go to with her business. And so I got like sort of this like the guinea pig situation. Now with each of those, what I was able to learn though was it helped me to really understand more about how to differentiate my business and how my business services and the consulting that I provide for my clients differ. Because ultimately, you have 3 stages of business, right? You have the people who are in the idea phase and they're just like, I don't know what I want to do. Or I think I know what I want to do. I'm just starting it out,
Right. Sure.
There's the idea phase. Then you have the people who are like still sort of stage 3, where they're already sort of at their 6, 7, 8 or 7, 8, 9-figure businesses, right? Maybe high 6 figures. And, you put them in a group together and they're able to they've mastered the ability to expertly filter out the noise, right? But then you have the people in between who they've already niched down. They already have their website. They're already marketing and putting their words out there. They don't need another group program to tell them to niche down. What they need is someone to look at their business and say, okay, you have a niche, you're not reaching them because of X, Y, Z, right? You're not reaching your right people because of A, B, C. You probably have seen this yourself, Joe, as a business transformation person, right? So it's like there's that in-between stage ends up getting lost in all these other online programs, et cetera. And so that is why my business, like we continue to provide one-on-one business strategy consulting, is because we're focusing on that person who needs that personalized, customized, tailored support, right? They need someone to deep dive into their business, right? And not just say, oh, you're a bakery? Well, here's what the other 10 bakeries are doing. You should do that too. But someone who says, oh, you person, right? You are either in-person bakery or online bakery. You're located in this town. You have this amount of time, money, and energy resources available to you. These are your goals that you have available. Oh, you're also a parent and a church volunteer. Oh, okay, you got a little bit different time things going on as well too, right? You've already tried this in the past. You've already tried maybe TikTok or vendor shows or, going out to fairs. Okay, cool. Based on what you tried in the past, let's figure out the best next step forward for you on what actually makes sense and getting you towards your vision and closing that gap, right? And so that is what helps them the best in having someone to actually look through and take a deep dive into their problem versus a 5-minute Q&A session where they might have a chance to ask a question and then they get some generic answer and they still have another question, right? Sure. And so that was what I was able to learn from those experiences. So even though it was a very expensive 6-figure investment into these different programs, but it really taught me and helped me to really, because someone was actually the other day, they said, you were so clear about your business. How did you get there? Because this was someone in their early stage of business where they were still trying to figure out how to get clear. And I said, it was all that. That's what helped me to get more clear on my business and who I serve and who I help. But when you ask, what am I doing now in my business? That is what we're doing, right? We're really focusing on,
And it sounds like it took a little while to come around. People are looking at you, people who are starting today are looking at you and saying, oh man, I don't have all that Vanessa has. I don't have that clear vision. What they don't understand is that Vanessa has been evolving for years to get to the point where she is now.
Exactly.
And they've got to follow their own path.
Exactly.
And it sounds like that's what you help them do.
Precisely.
Yeah, that is awesome. So awesome. So we're about, wow, time has flown here. I can't believe it. Wow. This is such good information, such rich information. I so appreciate you sharing your story and how you got to where you are. And I think a lot of people can identify with that. And I'd like to ask you, what would be the one takeaway that you'd like to give to our audiences today?
The one takeaway is, I know we talked a lot about, it's more so my business journey, so to speak. And so I would say the one takeaway is that, you may be looking at everyone online and maybe you're seeing them on the jets or the mansions, or whatever it is you're seeing online. And maybe you're saying, oh, I'm not there yet, or I need to get there tomorrow. And if I don't, then I'm a failure. And what you need to remember is that what you're looking at is version 7.0, version 10.0, right? Chances are you're not looking at version 1.0. Right? You were around when they were version 1.0 because they hadn't reached you yet, because they were still trying to get to version 2.0. And so being mindful of, whatever version you're at, entrepreneurship is a marathon, right? It is a journey. And it's all about understanding what is the path that you need to be on for your goals and your business, but at the same time, for your wellness as well, right? And enjoying the process and enjoying the journey along the way is the best way to make the journey the best that it can be. Because Absolutely. Being stressed in business is not fun. It doesn't help you as a CEO, as a decision maker. It just doesn't.
Right.
Or
Absolutely.
stress at least doesn't help.
Fantastic. Yeah. And for our listeners who want more of Vanessa, how can they get in touch with you?
Yes. Well, I do offer a masterclass on some Tuesdays. So I offer a masterclass called How to Grow Your Purpose-Driven Business Without Burnout, Deprivation, or Overwhelm. And through that masterclass, I go through my 13-step framework called the Hustle and Breathe framework, where I use that to help my clients go from struggle to growth, from the bad busy to good busy and productive, from running around confused and stressed to actually having clarity and freedom. So I go through and walk through my 13-step Hustle and Breathe framework in that 2-hour masterclass. And so people can go and check me out there, yourbusinessrevival.com. And if you already just want to connect quickly, if you're just like, okay, I'm not ready to learn about a framework first, I'm still doing some other things, totally understand, you're welcome to reach out to me via LinkedIn and Facebook. Send me a connect request. Let me know that you saw me on Joe's podcast, and feel free to send me a message.
That's super. And we'll have all that information in the show notes. Very good. Yeah, great. Thank you so much for being on the show, Vanessa. Appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your time.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Bye now. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Espresso Jams. If you like what you heard, please subscribe on your preferred channel and never miss another episode. If you'd like more business tips on technology, entrepreneurship, and doing better, you can find me on LinkedIn at Joe Matz, that's JoeMatz, or go to my website, apexable.com, that's apex-able.com. I'm your host, Joe Matz, wishing you an awesome day.